Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everybody. Alhamdulillah. Today we can meet again in our meeting. Uh, Now we will discuss on a new topic. It is about territory or law on territory. Territory is very important for a certain new country that declare as independent state. Why? Because territory, uh, if you remember about Westphalia Treaty in 1648, territory is one of the characteristic of a state. So if you don't have a certain territory, it's mean that there is no right for you to establish your new country as an independent state. So fixed territory you climb and recognized by other country, it is very important. That is why the law on territory is very, very significant in international law. And also, because of territory, there are many disputes. Some of them turn to war, very big war. So now we will discuss what is the importance of territory and what is the territory itself. Okay, territory means a space for human and other other things to live on. So territory means a space for human and surrounding areas to live on. So it is impossible for you to declare something if you don't have a certain territory. And in a political context, as I mentioned before, the territory as a part of uh, national characteristic. If you establish new country based on Westphalia Treaty, you absolutely need, firstly, you have a people, government, territory, and recognition, and also constitution, because there is no absolute power in a modern era. So international community try to make a limitation how a leader governs a country. So although you are a king, maybe absolute king from your ancestor, but you should limitate your power. That is why the four characteristic of a nation, firstly, people, government, constitution, and territory is very important. That is why territory as a space for life, your citizen, and uh, yeah, and space for your activities is very important. Now, there are categories of territory. Firstly, uh, territory owned by a sovereign state or sovereign country. It is clear for us that each country has their own fixed territory. For example, uh, Indonesia get legacy from the colonial government, the Dutch, that all of colonial areas now as Indonesian territory legally. Why? Because in international law there is a principle that all of colonial areas as legacy for new independent state after decolonization. the name of the principle is Utis Possidetis. Utis Possidetis. It's mean that colonial areas will be an area for new independent country after decolonization. And now that is why you can understand that why Timor Leste not as a part of Indonesian territory. Why? Because Timor Leste is not a part of Dutch uh, colonial area, but as a part of Portugal. So, although the region is very near with East Nusa Tenggara, yeah, in Eastern Bali, that is East Nusa Tenggara. After that, Timor Leste. Uh, Although very close to East Nusa Tenggara, Timor Leste is not a part of Indonesia. So it is logic when in 1999, 1999, 2000, yeah, there is a referendum in Timor Leste to spirit from Indonesia and they establish a new country. Yeah, it is logic. And historically, makes sense. Legalized by the historical background and international law. So, Indonesia pleased to arrange referendum because if Indonesia stay for long time in Timor Leste, really Indonesia breaks international law. Why? Yeah, what is Indonesian legal standing reason? Because Timor Leste is not as part of Dutch uh, areas. Now, at that time, Indonesia occupied uh, Timor Leste with annexation, uh, military annexation, because of the geopolitical decision. As you know that in 1976, yeah, before 1980, uh, world politic colored by Cold War era between Eastern Bloc led by Soviet Union at that time and the Eastern Bloc by the United uh, States as a leader, or West and East. The situation at that time, the Portugal government stated in 1974, 1975 that Timor-Leste will be released as independent state. And unfortunately, the condition of Timor-Leste at that time, from the economic perspective, it is very, very poor, yeah, until now. Secondly, from the ideological consideration, majority of Timor-Leste at the time uh, refer to socialist and communist political ideology. So majority, uh, Fretilin and also the small parties, majority refer to socialist and communist party. Although Portugal is liberal, yeah. So can you imagine if a new country emerged in the eastern area of Indonesia, it's mean in the heart of Pacific because Timor Leste is very strategic in military in term of ship, also submarine station because the position of Timor Leste very close to Pacific Ocean. If there is new country, poor and ideologically is not Western oriented, not liberal but socialist communist, you can imagine the new country should be a, an unstable country politically and socially. New country, Timor Leste, in Western calculation, if in 1970, 75, 76, emerged as a new country, it will be unstable country, poor and socialist communist as a mainstream ideology. So in Western calculation, it is uh, not productive to make a Pacific stabilization in terms of military and politically. Because if a new country poor and communist, socialist and unstable, absolutely the new country will refer to Eastern Bloc. It will be a friend of Eastern Bloc, not Western Bloc. And you can imagine if Timor-Leste as a part of Eastern Bloc, it's mean Soviet Union can make very big military base, navy for example, in the bank of Pacific or in the heart of Pacific, in the central Pacific. So the Western Bloc worry if Soviet Union built a big military base in East Timor, it will make or change a political stabilization and balance of power in Pacific, because all of Pacific areas are Western friend. Yeah, you can imagine Indonesia, Australia, New Zealand, and the realm like Japan, Singapore, Malaysia, Brunei Darussalam, Philippines, and all the small state in Pacific. So, uh, United States and France, yeah, Western ally, decided that it is not strategic to free Timor-Leste down to Eastern Bloc if Portugal release the status of uh, Timor-Leste. Why Portugal want to release at the time? Because there is a very big deficit in national budget in Portugal. So there is no money to maintain the relation to the Timor-Leste. That is why Indonesia, President Suharto, as a friend of United States and ally, get order from the Western Bloc to make annexation to Timor Leste, because it is not only Indonesian uh, what not Indonesian interest, but Indonesia represent as a representative of Western Bloc interests to occupy Timor Leste. That is why, although Indonesia realized fully that create or have annexation to Timor Leste was break international law, but because of the political interest represent as a representative of Western Bloc, Indonesia do this program to free, to what, to govern, to occupy Timor Leste. So Indonesia have annexation to Timor Leste by order by Western Bloc. That is why all of the budget to occupy, to make annexation, military operation, all uh, come from American and ally. Yeah, so this is reality that because of the what is international quote unquote Western Bloc interest, Indonesia should occupy Timor Leste. Yeah. So that is why after I believe that it is very hard decision from President Soeharto because at the time also Professor Mohtar Kusuma Atmaja as international law expert as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But this is the reality in international law. It is very hard decision, but Indonesia should take the role and after this action from Indonesia get many advantage economically, support by uh, Western ally, United States, UK, Japan, and so on, because Indonesia make a strategic action to occupy the potential threat for a friends of Western Bloc. A friends, not only singular, but a friends, because Indonesia as a hero for all of Western friends in Pacific. So what about the position Indonesia and United Nation because of this action? Yeah, really, Eastern Bloc destroy Indonesian diplomacy and make international propaganda that Indonesia break international law and so on and so on. But because the situation still in rivalry between Eastern and Western Bloc, the map in United Nations also clear that all of Western ally support Indonesia. Yeah, absolutely exclude Portugal because Portugal should maintain their feeling relation. I think just feel, not really. Yeah, with Timor Leste. And society, absolutely. But uh, Portugal can understand what Indonesian do at that time. Yeah, Indonesia is not under their own interest, but Indonesian action under ally represent the Western interest. So that is why very advantage for Indonesia, and that is why after the end of Cold War, it is open for Indonesia to release Timor Leste and to create referendum because Indonesia there is no block rationality, there is no block consideration, there is no Western interest after the end of Cold War because Eastern War dismissed, and you know that uh, Soviet Union dismissed, and now Russia and 11 CIS countries. Yeah. Uh, so back to the territory. So what Indonesia did in Timor Leste really annexation, but at that time it is very important to save Western Bloc interest, to save, yeah, include in Western Bloc at that time Indonesian interest, because Indonesian very popular as anti-communist nation. Pak Harto anti-communist nation. So you can imagine in our ZAT, our close neighbor, there is a communist nation. Yeah, it is not uh, fortune for Indonesia. That is why Indonesia occupy. And the position of Timor Leste today, it is more liberal in political system than at that time. Yeah, because there is no patron-client relation with the Soviet Union. Yeah. And the change of political system from Soviet Union to Russia. Russia very liberal now. Okay, yeah, this is the territory owned by a sovereign state, and majority of new countries after World War II, the territory come from the colonial eras. Okay, this is the first category. The second about the territory capable of being owned but not yet under sovereign control. The name is Terranullius. Nah, Terranullius is very Terranullius is very debatable concept, because Terranullius assume that there is land without ownership. There is land without ownership. Uh, the meaning of ownership is very European perspective. Yeah. Terranullius, for example, you know that Indonesia in 1916 or 17th century, there are more than 200 kingship system in Indonesia. There are more than 200 kingship system in Indonesia. Also in India, yeah. Also in surrounding Asia. But because of the king system in Indonesia, the nation, the territory, the leadership of the kingship system in Indonesia not recognized or not yet recognized by European countries. So all of the Indonesian now, Nusantara region, and also in India, stamped or recognized as terra nullius by European countries. Okay, I repeat. In Indonesia, in 17th, 16th century, there are more than 200 kingship system. Yeah, Sriwijaya, Majapahit. You remember this? There are Kasultanan in Yogyakarta, Yogyakarta Sultanate, Cirebon, Banten. Also in Ternate, Tidore, in Balinese kingship system, there are many. Nusa Tenggara West, Nusa Tenggara. Yes. So at that time, there are many king, many leadership, many nation in Indonesia, but all of these nation not yet recognized by one or more sovereign country in European perspective or in European base law. Now, what is European base law? Back to the Westphalian Treaty. So, terra nullius is a concept or a status, although you have a kingship system, you have a people, you have a region, but your country not yet recognized by one or more European countries. In the medieval century, 16th century, 15th century, 16th, 17th century, your country will get the status Terranullius. Terranullius. What's the meaning of Terranullius? It's mean that your country not recognized as a nation state, not recognized as the subject of international law. Your country not recognized as nation state, as the subject of international law. That is why European countries and also VOC make colonization, imperialism, colonize all of the areas out of Europe to be their own territory. Why? Because all of the territory out of the Europe, majority are terra nullius. That is why the concept of terra nullius really, the concept to legalize colonization and imperialism. China, for example, China has established their kingship system more than 5,000 years. But in European legal system, China is not recognized as a nation state because not recognized by one or more European country at that time. That is why United Kingdom, England, tried to colonize China. You know the Opium War, yeah. You know the why Hong Kong for 100 years under UK control, Hong Kong, Macau. Yeah, because of the effort from UK try to colonize China. Although China really has a big kingship system, but under European law, it is not recognized. Hmm. That is China. What about Indonesia? Now, all of Indonesian kingship system from Aceh until Merauke, from Bali until northern area of the North Maluku, all of these area stem or legalized as a terra nullius from European countries. That is why Portugal, Spain, UK, and the last Dutch government after VOC colonized what we call it now as Indonesian region. Yeah. So Terranullius really is not a fair concept. Terranullius is not yeah, not a represent of a justice concept. Yeah. But Terranullius more European concept to occupy the outer Europe, the another part of Europe. That is why in this slide you can see, yeah, there is a question about Australian history. Is it UK as the first people make a society in Australia? Oh, absolutely no. There is Aborigine, there is Maori in New Zealand also, Maori Aborigine. And UK colonials at that time stated that this is Terranullius. I conquer, I discover. Discovery. The term of discover is also very imperialistic. Discover. Discover is not fair concept. For example, Columbus discover United States. Discover. What's the meaning of discover? 200 years before Columbus stay in America, King Abu Bakar from Tunisia, King Abu Bakar is the older brother from the king, the very popular king. The name is Mahsan Musa. Yeah? King Abu Bakar stay in Aztec, Maya, Inca. If you know the Geronimo, Apache, Indian leaders and hero, Apache and Geronimo, Indian, yes, Indian, but it is Muslim Indian. So if you come to Indian villagers or village, there are many names in Arabic spelling. If you come to Indian, they know about the mosque, the masjid. They know about the name from Arabic. So Columbus come to America and stated that I discover a new continent. It is not fair, you know. Yeah. And absolutely, when Columbus come to America, they bring the the expert mapping in the ocean. It is Muslim, and you can you can check this story from China history or document that there are Muslim traveler at that time. So the concept of Terranullius and the concept of discover, the concept of Terranullius and the concept of discovering, for example, uh, these islands or discovering a continent is not a fair concept. Yeah. Discover, yeah. Magellan discover Philippines. Oh, there are many people in Philippines. There are Sulu kingship system in Philippines. And they come to Philippines in the late era and they say, I discover. What's the meaning of discover? The people come to Indonesia and Nusantara at the time and they say, I discover a very beautiful area. Yeah, really in Indonesian area at that time there are more than 200 kingship system. So you should realize that you realize that now history is a multi-reading concept. The fact may be the same, but how to read the fact produce a different result. That is why history is the multifaceted reading, a multifaceted reading. So each reader get their own result. So I want to make stressing that Terranullius concept and discover concept is not a fair concept, but it is reality. And because of the concept of Terranullius and discover, this is the very arrogant concept, almost all of the part of the world surrounding the world outside the European areas colonized by European countries, and they say it is legal because terra nullius, unfair concept. Okay, okay, and now, yeah, the third category of territory is res communis. Res communis mean territory is incapable of ever being legally owned or controlled. It's belong to no one and must remain available for all parties to use. The clearest example of res communis are the high seas, deep sea, seabed level, and so on. And also Antarctic, North Pole. It is not for a certain country, but really for all of human being. But still, there is what overlap territory, overlap climb. Yeah, it's normal. Yeah, it is normal. But by concept, really, North Pole and Southern Pole is res communis for all human being. Yeah, there is many solution mode to make territorial dispute. One of them about the adjudication in International Court of Justice, like when Indonesian has dispute with Malaysia on simpadan ligitan dispute territory. ICG decided that simpadan ligitan owned by Malaysia. Indonesia received this. Now it is your homework. Yeah, it is your homework to describe shortly about what is accession, cession, prescription, occupation, and annexation. You say that I mentioned about annexation. Annexation absolutely forbidden in international law because it is not your right, but you try to occupy the region or the areas. So annexation forbidden. Absolutely. Occupation, we will discuss it. Accretion, what is accretion? Please try to read in Professor Mohtar Kustamat Atmaja book or other books in international references I attach for you. Chasten, prescription, chasten like in Alaska, yeah, Alaska. Chasten, uh, an area but sold by the owner and bought by the other countries by international treaty. So, okay, I receive your territory and you get the consequences, financial, for example. It is cession. So, uh, under international treaty among the countries. Okay, thank you very much. But don't forget to do your homework. Yeah. Please describe what is accretion, cession, prescription, occupation, annexation. Refer to your book. Okay. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.